Listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Greetings, my friends. Great to have you here. Great to be back after seemed like a really short weekend to me, because I love being here so much. But here we are, raring and ready to go behind the golden EIB microphone, El Rushbo, emitting vocal vibrations coast to coast. And you can be part of it, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address, elrushbo@eibnet.us. The death of Senator McCain has provided an opportunity for the drive-by media. I will explain that it's going to. I'm going to warn everybody here. It might be perceived by some. You just don't know, but it might be perceived by some that comments I might make about the aspects of Senator McCain's life could be controversial. Imagine that. I just want to prep everybody that I have my own theories about witnessing the drive-bys and how they are reacting to it and why. And by the way, just to take the pressure off of me, to show you where I'm thinking, among many other things about this, grab audio soundbite number 19. Sunday morning, CNN, State of the Union, during discussion of the death of Senator McCain, Jake Tapper.
I can't help but think that, part of the reason why there's such reverence for him today is because of who's in the White House right now, because they're polar opposites.
Okay, so there you have it from none other than the Never Trumper Network, CNN, making it clear that part of the reason why there's so much reverence for Senator McCain is because of who is in the White House right now. What that means is, and he's admitting it, one of the reasons there's reverence for McCain is the opportunity it provides to continue to savage Donald Trump, to continue to rip Donald Trump by setting up these comparisons between Trump and McCain and showing Trump coming up short on virtually every measure the drive-bys make. The truth of the matter is, and I've got an example of this, and there are many. You go back to 2008. Actually, you have to go back before that. If you go back to the 90s, during the Clinton years, and Fox News starts in 1996-97, MSNBC gets going, and the Clinton impeachment saga is being discussed every night on TV, and a media darling develops on MSNBC's John McCain. MSNBC loves Senator McCain because Senator McCain, for which he is being honored and recognized since his death, had the courage to criticize his own party, had the courage to criticize his own party's policies, his own party's presidents. He had the courage. That's what made McCain a really great guy to the drive-by media. And McCain sought the presidential nomination in 2000. It was open. George W. Bush got the nomination eventually, but it was a really knockdown, drag-out primary fight in South Carolina. Suppose some of the tricks played on McCain by the Bush campaign were considered to be unconscionable, unacceptable. I mean, so below the belt that you needed to get down to the sewer to see the result. McCain was livid at the time. A lot of people supporting McCain were livid at the time. Bush goes on to win. And in the ensuing years, McCain remains the media darling. I mean, the drive-by media loved John McCain. He was practically a regular guest on MSNBC. It got to the point, folks, for those of you who don't remember, that John McCain would frequently refer to the drive-by media as his base. As his base voters, as his base supporters. And all during this time, well, not all during it, but as we approached the year 2008, and it became clear that Senator McCain was going to seek the Republican nomination. And I remember issuing a warning, I don't know how many times, but too many times to count here, to Senator McCain and his campaign team, that the minute you seek the Republican nomination, you are going to be cast aside by this media that has been fawning over you and loving you. You are going to become the enemy. And boy, did he. He became, especially when Obama got the nomination and McCain got the Republican nomination. People have forgotten the long knives came out for McCain by all of these people in the media who had made it look like they loved him and revered him, and they did. And the reason they did was because of the maverick personality and McCain's willingness to criticize his own party. McCain's willingness to talk about crossing the aisle, shaking hands, working together to get things done. The politics of compromise, because that always meant Republicans losing. When we talked about, in those days, about Republicans compromising, what it meant was Republicans forgetting their agenda and signing on to the Democrat agenda. And it's always been that way. There was nothing new about it then. And it was very frustrating for a lot of people that Senator McCain didn't see it. Or if he did, thought that he could overcome it. Well, then when they made the decision to pick Sarah Palin, folks, that ended any pretense of love and respect for Senator McCain. And then you make the Democrat nominee Obama the first African-American presidential nominee, and McCain did not have a chance in the drive-by media. The people who had made him think they respected him, made him believe they loved him, cast him aside. And it wasn't that he remained in their eyes a good guy and friendly. They went after him, and the Democrat Party went after him as though he had been a rock-ribbed conservative forever and had never had a flirtation with the drive-by media at all. It was easily predictable. It was sad to see, I have to tell you, because it was so predictable. And let me give you just one example, and there are a plethora of these, if you wanted to take the time to go get them. John Lewis, who got beat upside the head, the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, during the Great Civil Rights March. John Lewis tweeted on Saturday, Senator John McCain was a warrior for peace. He will be deeply missed by people all around the world. Well, let's go back to Politico, October 11th, 2008. Basically 3 weeks away from the presidential election. And there's a Politico story, and the headline, John Lewis, invoking George Wallace, says McCain and Palin are playing with fire. Politico civil rights icon and Georgia Congressman John Lewis is accusing John McCain of stoking hate, likening the atmosphere at Republican campaign events to those featuring George Wallace, the segregationist former governor of Alabama and presidential candidate. McCain's campaign has responded with a statement in the candidate's name urging Obama to repudiate Lewis's comments. John Lewis, in a statement issued for Politico's Arena Forum, said, "What I am seeing reminds me too much of another destructive period in American history. Senator McCain and Governor Palin are sowing the seeds of hatred and division, and there is no need for this hostility in our political discourse." Lewis didn't accuse McCain of imitating Wallace, but suggested there were similarities. Okay, this is one example, and it's one of a plethora I could surface if I wished to take the time, if I wanted to, but it makes the point. It provides the illustration. So after Senator McCain passes away, he becomes a good guy again. The eyes of John Lewis. Senator McCain was a warrior for peace. He will be deeply missed by people all around the world. Well, during the 2008 campaign, he wasn't a warrior for anything but hate and racism, according to the same guy. Now, you might say, well, Rush, come on. It was a presidential campaign. You have to forget that stuff. You have to look past. See, that's what I don't do, folks. I think in the heat of battle is when Democrats say what they really mean. And John Lewis' example here is one of many. You go back and look, I mean, the viciousness for McCain, the viciousness for Palin. It was bad. It was bad enough for McCain alone before he chose Palin. After he chose Palin, it became, it rivaled some of the mean-spirited and viciousness that we've seen against Trump. People have just forgotten about it, and I do believe that Jake Tapper is right. I think Jake Tapper has a point. The death of Senator McCain has provided the drive-by media with a brand new reason to go after Donald Trump. The death of Senator McCain and as Jake Tapper said here, the reason why there is such reverence for McCain, he's admitting it. The reason there's such reverence for McCain is because of Trump. Means the reverence may not be all that genuine. It may be that it is timely and serves a purpose. Here's another little bit of hypocrisy. How do you square this? The drive-by media supports all of these people who protest against America, protest against the American flag, take a knee and kneel during NFL games, some of the players that do. The general disrespect shown for the flag, and anybody that comes along, especially any minority group that has anything negative to say about America, they focus on it, they love it, they promote it. How does that jibe with promoting and having such reverence for such an obvious hero and patriot as John McCain? I said, if you wanted to, you can spend all kinds of time noting the hypocrisy that is all over the place. The left finally finds a war hero they love while supporting the disrespecting of the flag by NFL players. Yeah, I think a lot of what we see in the drive-by media is not real. It's not genuine. It is agenda-oriented and agenda-related. The drive-by media, Senator McCain was very valuable to them. He was a ranking Republican for whom there was universal respect and admiration around the world, around the country. And when he criticized his own party, and I'm not just talking about Obamacare and Trump. I mean, when he criticized George W. Bush, when he came up with this campaign finance reform business, whenever McCain did anything that was perceived to be anti the Republican Party, they just showered him with love and affection and respect. And that was Senator McCain's value to them. And the proof that it was not real, when they had a chance to get behind the man they revered, when they had a chance to get behind the guy they thought was the best example of politics in Washington, when they had a chance to get behind this man, when he ran for president twice, they did not do it. He became, like every other Republican, a target, with a target and a bullseye all over him and his campaign. And it just, it was frustrating to watch this, be able to predict it and know that it was going to happen. There are other things, too, about this that we'll get into as the program unfolds, but there are other things happening. For example, have you heard Trump didn't leave the flag at half-mast long enough? Trump put the flag at half-mast for if you go look at the law and at federal regulations, for a member of Congress, the flag flies at half-mast for a day or two, and that's it. The flag flew at half-mast for the appropriate amount of time, and then it was raised, and the drive-bys are livid because it's yet another opportunity to attack Donald Trump as some savage, as some unsophisticated, as some cretin. Meanwhile, NBC, Wall Street Journal has a poll. I think I predicted this. I think I predicted to you that the Cohen story and the Manafort conviction would not affect Trump's approval numbers with his supporters. It wouldn't matter to them. NBC News, Wall Street Journal has a poll out that basically says exactly that. And the drive-bys are puzzled. Once again, the drive-by, they can't believe Trump survived the Access Hollywood video. They can't believe Trump's going to survive this. They just can't believe it. And then to add insult to injury, the stock market hit a brand new record high today of 26,000. NASDAQ hit 8,000 for the first time ever on the news that we have a renegotiated NAFTA trade deal with Mexico. Tell me, did any Democrats have anything to do with this? They didn't. This is a Donald Trump production. This follows Donald Trump telling Pompeo to scrub the trip to North Korea. There's no sense in talking to him. They're not following through any commitments they made. We're not going to waste any time with them. This upset the Chi-Coms. The Chi-Coms thought that they were going to be able to pull one over on Trump with the little pot-bellied dictator in North Korea leading the way. But Trump says, if you're not going to take this serious, I'm getting out. We're not going to, this is a joke. I met you halfway, tried to do things in a way that showed you respect, but you're apparently not interested, so we're pulling out. In the meantime, imagine the Chi-Coms reacting to the news themselves of this brand new trade deal with Mexico. Mexico. Supposedly, Mexico hates Trump. Supposedly, this was not possible. It's just another in a long line of campaign assurances and promises that have been kept.
Rush Limbaugh, making radio great again. You're listening to the EIB Network.
Legacy Box is the easiest way to get all of your old home movies, films, and photos converted to digital files. Birthdays, a baby's first steps, graduations, weddings, the family get-togethers, and holiday time. All of those important moments that you have on old camcorder tapes, photos, Super 8 film. Legacy Box converts them all to digital files and puts them on a thumb drive or a DVD for you, whatever you want. All the work is done by hand right here in the USA. Over 400,000 families now have used Legacy Box to create over 3 million DVDs, every one of them full of memories. If your own family members are still on old VHS tapes and photos, preserve them now, folks, before they're lost or harmed or disintegrate. There's never been a better time to digitally preserve your old home movies, film reels, and photos. Get 40% off at legacybox.com/rush. That's legacybox.com/rush. 40% off. No, I'm sorry. Isn't lowering the flag for somebody to half-mast an insult, given what that flag represents? I mean, whenever the left has anybody, NFL players, I don't care who they are, when they trash the flag, when they disrespect the flag, when they disrespect the national anthem, any symbol of America and patriotism, the media applauds it. The media thinks it's great. The media promotes it. And the media encourages more behavior because that's what real dissent is. And that's what real freedom of speech is. So if it's so worthwhile, if it's so valuable, if it is so meaningful, it is so important to trash the flag, to disrespect it during the national anthem prior to sporting events, then why is it an honor to lower the flag to half-mast to honor a great hero's death? Yeah, it's media. But by the way, folks, I have a lot here today, and I just want to warn you, despite my best efforts, it's going to take almost all 3 hours to get everything in. I mean, I have more things on Senator McCain. We have, my statement last week that many cable news networks bounced off of. I said that I think now that these Trump investigations have gone to the New York prosecutors, state and federal, I said, now that Trump's business is in the crosshairs, the full-fledged effort to ruin him and his company and his kids is under full steam ahead. And I've got some backup for that now. Some things have been said over the weekend that let it be known that that's pretty right. I've got other people saying on cable news over the weekend that I'm a little bit excessive in those remarks. It may not be quite the case. And so we just loaded here today, so hang on.
You're listening to Russia's Week in Review.
President Trump, after announcing the new NAFTA framework, said they used to call it NAFTA. We're going to call it the United States-Mexico Trade Agreement. We will get rid of the name NAFTA. It was a bad deal, he says. It was one of the dumbest and worst deals ever, so we're going to get rid of it, and we're going to call it the United States-Mexico Trade Agreement. Now, NAFTA was the name it had during the negotiation during the Clinton administration. Let me give a couple of headlines here. Florida law enforcement, 15 people shot, 4 dead, 11 being treated in deadly mass shooting. And the drive-by media has been all over it since it happened on television. A headline from yesterday, Chicago Sun-Times, 23 shot in Chicago since Friday evening. At least 23 people have been shot in Chicago, 2 of them fatally, since Friday evening. That you haven't heard about. And you know what? I'm thinking you might not hear very much about this Jacksonville shooting after the preliminaries, because it appears that the shooter was part of the Trump resistance. The shooter apparently, on a Reddit thread, was very, very anti-Trump. And so the drive-bys are not going to want to make a vast move on this guy, make it look like the resistance is taking up arms, because people that hate Trump are supposed to hate guns. You see, the only people that like guns are Republicans. And when it comes to conservatives in the media, as far as the media is concerned, conservatives who are no longer able to be conservatives are the best kind. Republicans who are no longer able to be Republicans are the best kind. And they get all kinds of fawning reverence and treatment. How about the Pope? We can take the hypocrisy route on this. Pope Francis long knew of the Cardinal's abuse and must resign, says Archbishop. On the final day of Pope Francis' mission to Ireland, as he issued wrenching apologies for clerical sex abuse scandals. By the way, it seems that this is so widespread around the world. Everybody thinks the church, I guess, dealt with this some years ago, and it's becoming clear that not only has the church not dealt with it, it has continued to spread. And there are now calls for the Pope's resignation because he knew about it. Long knew of the Cardinal's abuse. On the final day of Pope Francis' mission to Ireland, as he issued wrenching apologies for clerical sex abuse scandals, a former top Vatican diplomat claimed in a letter published on Sunday that Il Papa himself had joined top Vatican officials in covering up the abuses and called for his resignation. The letter, a bombshell written by Carlo Maria Vigano, the former top Vatican diplomat in the United States, a staunch critic of the Pope's, seemed time to do more than simply derail the Pope's uphill efforts to win back the Irish faithful, who have turned away from the church in large numbers. And then I recall that the Pope really went after oil executives one time when it came to climate change. Pope Francis, in fact, this is June 19th of this year. I really am fortunate to be blessed with such a wonderful memory. As I remember this, Pope Francis to oil executives, no time to lose on climate change. The Pope urged immediate action on climate change, stating that levels of carbon dioxide emissions and atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases are disturbing and a cause for real concern. In June, Pope Francis summoned a group of oil and finance executives to the Vatican for a speech on the need to rapidly transition to cleaner forms of energy. This is the Vicar of Christ doing this, reinforcing the warnings in his 2015 encyclical. The Pope urged immediate action on climate change, stating that levels of carbon dioxide emissions, atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases are disturbing and a cause for real concern. Could we all agree that rampant pedophilia in the Catholic Church is disturbing and a cause for real concern? Could we agree? Am I being too controversial in making that statement? Now, has the Pope convened the offending cardinals and told them to stop it? Has he convened the offending priests and monsignors and told them to cut it out? No. In fact, the story is that he's long known of all of this and hasn't done much about it. But when it comes time to climate change, greenhouse gases, there is no time to lose. Well, what about this other? What about doing it for the children? The fact of the matter is that industries in the United States do a better job managing CO2 emissions than all other organizations on Earth. So once again, folks, rampant and blatant hypocrisy that is related to a political agenda. And even this pedophilia crisis in the Catholic Church, it is, as I say, it is so much more widespread than anybody knew. This is another one of those areas where you have to tread very, very carefully about what you say and how you say what you say. But this is so widespread, and this is so damaging and so destructive that it doesn't seem to me to just be coincidental. How long is it going to be before there are serious calls for allowing priests to marry? How long is it going to be before somebody starts suggesting, maybe they have, I'm not Catholic, so maybe people are. How long is it going to be before people start pointing out that look, if you're going to demand celibacy, you're not going to allow marriage, then you're going to get what you get. I suspect it may even be whispered about now, but it will pick up intensity as time goes on. Let's grab phones while we have a chance here before the break. We'll start in Adam Neck, Connecticut. This is Matt. Welcome, sir. You're up first today. It's great to have you here with us.
Mr. Limbaugh, thank you greatly for taking my phone call, especially in the first hour. I just wanted to point out that maybe Mr. McCain's death proves again that the only good type of Republican is a dead Republican.
Hang on. What,
on that.
Whoa, hang on. Would you? I'm sorry for the spasm there. What was that you said?
It seems that Mr. McCain's death might prove again that the only good Republican is a dead Republican.
And you're saying this because of all the accolades and reverence for Senator McCain after he passed away?
The only time that Republicans or conservatives seem to get praise is when they're betraying their party. And if you're dead long enough, like Reagan, maybe eventually you can actually be somebody that can be emulated or agreed with when the time's right.
Well, you know, it's interesting you bring up Reagan. Even when they start praising Reagan, they do it after a bunch of history revision. They claim that Reagan did and said things and believed things that he didn't. And they do this after enough time has passed that they're banking on the fact that a lot of people won't remember. But that's a good point too. Look, some people will think that your statement there is a bit extreme, but if you just take it at its basic, and the only good Republican is a dead Republican, is what you
Yes, I'm just calling it the way I see it, sir.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. I believe that. Well, look, I'm glad you got in the first hour too. It's so rare to take calls in the first hour. I'm glad you made it in here, Matt. It's along the lines of what I just said. The only good conservative is a conservative who can't be conservative anymore. And so, look, for those of you bothered by the statement, there's one thing, if you are not aware of it. The media, for years, lavished praise on John McCain like no other Republican. Like no other Republican in my life. There may be some that I forgot, but McCain in the modern era was the beneficiary of more positive, adoring, fawning media. I've never seen a Republican get that kind of coverage. And it was when he was being critical of his own party, when he was crossing the aisle to work with Democrats on issues they cared about, like campaign finance reform. And a number of other things which were considered to be against his own party. The media just loved it. But the point is, when McCain, he sadly, I think, really believed it was genuine by calling the media his base. Now, he was joking a couple times when he said this, but there was no question that he was trying to cultivate them. He knew he was going to run for office, for president, higher office. He knew he wanted the media on his side. Who wouldn't? And I think that there is ample evidence to believe that he believed he had succeeded, at least in taming them a bit, that he was going to be getting a better break than most Republicans. But when he got the nomination, and then Obama was the Democrat nominee, it was over. And McCain and Palin became the arch enemy, like all Republicans have been. And all of that fawning and all of that reverence just seemed to fade away as though it had never existed. And I knew it was going to happen. And it was, I don't know, it's one of those times I hate being right. Let me take another brief time out as the minutes keep rolling by at a record clip here. Don't go anywhere.
Pointing the way on the EIB network.
Simply Safe Home Security, another one of our many success stories. It's a great security system, fantastic protection, and very easy to use. The founder started the company because he wanted to help his friends who had been burglarized. So he invented a solution that protected their homes. Fast forward to today, Simply Safe protects over 2 million people. Simply Safe is comprehensive protection for your home with round-the-clock professional monitoring and police dispatch. This system is easy to use. It takes less than an hour to set up. With Simply Safe, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, 24/7 monitoring, only $14.99 a month. CNET, PC Mag, and the Wirecutter all named Simply Safe their top pick for home security. Visit simplysafeusa.com to order your system now. You'll get 10% off and a 60-day money-back guarantee. That's simplysafeusa.com. That's all you need. 10% off. Hi, welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, your guiding light through times of trouble, confusion, murkiness, tumult, hypocrisy, and even the good times. Despite Lanny Davis lying his butt off on every network, claiming that Michael Cohen had information that Trump had prior knowledge that Russia hacked the deep. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about the two big lies Lanny Davis told? He went on cable news and told everybody that Cohen had proof that Trump knew about the Trump Tower meeting and encouraged it. And he had said he had evidence, information, that Trump had prior knowledge that Russia hacked DNC emails. Lanny Davis said that Trump knew about the emails, the Podesta emails that WikiLeaks published before they were published. And both have been demonstrated to be false. And they both were made possible and facilitated by CNN. There's a reporter at CNN, Jim Sciutto, not to be confused with Jim Acosta. This is Jim Sciutto, Sciutto, who I think came from the Obama administration. And he spread two knowingly false fake news stories, as did Lanny Davis, about Cohen's knowledge of Trump and Trump's supposed knowledge of all these things the Russians were doing before we knew about it. And they've been demonstrated now to be false. They were lies. And despite this, despite the blizzard of media lies, despite the wild speculation designed to drive Donald Trump out of office, Trump's support remains solid. And why? Because a sizable number of Americans do not trust the media anymore. They do not trust polling data anymore. A sizable number of Americans love the United States, and they are benefiting profoundly from the revitalized economy. A sizable number of Americans know that Robert Mueller is running a phony collusion Democrat opposition research operation designed to cover up the crimes and corruption of the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton. A sizable number of Americans know all of these things. NBC, Wall Street Journal poll, Trump approval remarkably stable after a stormy week of bad news. The drive-by media just can't learn. I predicted last week that these scandals would not upset Trump's approval numbers on balance. Just like I knew that the Access Hollywood video wouldn't. And you know why I knew that? Because I know the Trump voter, and I know the Trump voter is fed up with a bunch of things being leaked into a campaign like late in October, the October surprise. They're fed up with things like that affecting the outcome of elections. Particularly when they don't care. When it comes to Donald Trump, they don't care about any of that. They never have. Because Donald Trump, in their minds, is the only thing standing in the way of their lives being changed forever by virtue of the Washington establishment continuing to transform this country into something it was not founded to be. Donald Trump's the guy. They're not going to get rid, they're not going to abandon him, and they're not going to sit idly by while other people try to destroy him. NBC News, listen to this. After a week, it saw President Trump's former campaign chairman convicted on 8 counts of fraud, and his former lawyer plead guilty to felony campaign finance charges. President's job approval remains virtually unchanged. New polling from NBC and the Wall Street Journal shows. Can't believe it. They just can't believe it. Because I'm here to tell you and remind you again, the real focal point of all of these attacks on Trump has been to drive down this number. This is the only way they're going to be able to force Trump out of office. They can't indict a sitting president. They're not going to ever have 2/3 of the Senate vote to convict him if he's impeached. Oh, and speaking of which, the Democrats have a new policy. Their new policy is to not talk about impeachment. Once again, the Democrats want to hide from voters their real intentions. But something might have happened to screw it all up. There's this California Democrat that all the cable networks love this guy. Fox puts him on 3 times a week. CNN may as well give him a camera in his office. His name is Swalwell. Eric Swalwell. He's a nice guy, don't misunderstand, but he's a raging leftist. And he has just admitted yesterday on, I think it was one of the Sunday shows, ABC, they don't have anywhere near enough evidence to impeach Trump. They don't have any. They haven't seen anything yet, despite all that we've seen in the news for a year and a half now. Is he just executing a Democrat strategy of trying to talk everybody out of thinking they want to impeach or not? I don't know. But it manifests itself as very fascinating to me.
From Richmond to Cedar City, Memphis to Steubenville, serving America. Rush Limbaugh of the EIB Network. You're listening to Rush's Week in Review on the EIB Network.
Hi, folks. How are you? Welcome back. Great to be back. Rush Limbaugh, doing what I was born to do. I was born to be on the radio, and here I am each and every day. Such a blessing. Such a great thrill to be with you. Have you out there every day. Telephone number if you want to be on the program is 800-282-2882. The email address, ilrushmo@eibnet.us. Okay, folks, as usual, there are things galore exploding out there today that it's going to take a decent portion of the program today to get to everything. I was actually kind of proud of myself. I got to 90% of what I had yesterday. I got it in. yesterday, which doesn't usually happen. I just don't tell you every day, because what you don't know, you can't possibly criticize. But yesterday was especially productive, and today, let me just give you a brief headline example. CNN, and this, by the way, this really has its origins last Friday. This Lanny Davis story and his recanting of blockbuster claims he made about himself and Michael Cohen, and the now confirmed lies, admitted lies, that Cohen and Lanny Davis told that Donald Trump knew about the Trump Tower meeting before it happened, and that Donald Trump knew about the WikiLeaks emails that they were going to publish before they published them. Lanny Davis is the primary source for both of those stories. Michael Cohen's a secondary source. Lanny Davis, a primary unnamed source for CNN. Both of those stories have now been debunked by none other than Lanny Davis. Lanny Davis has admitted that he made mistakes. Lanny Davis has admitted that he got it wrong. People are now trying to figure out how he could have gotten it so wrong. How could he have committed such mistakes? Very few people are asking, why would Lanny Davis lie? Well, here's the interesting thing about it. And remember, I'm just setting the table with this. The details here are fascinating. CNN, even though its sources have recanted the story, CNN's still running it. CNN will not pull it. CNN's still running these stories that Trump knew of the Trump Tower meeting before it happened and was okay with it, which Lanny Davis says now Michael Cohen didn't know and didn't say, that he was the source for it and it was wrong, and that Trump knew about the WikiLeaks emails, the Podesta emails, before WikiLeaks published them. All that's been walked back, but CNN is sticking with their story. And everybody's trying to figure out why. Does CNN have sources beyond Lanny Davis and Michael Cohen for these allegations? If not, why will they not retract it? I have a wild guess reason why CNN might not retract it. There are three names that are bylines on the CNN story. One of them is Jim Sciutto, and another one is Carl Bernstein of Woodward and Bernstein fame. I wouldn't put it past CNN to simply not pull the story back so as to protect Bernstein, to protect the reputation of Bernstein. I think there are Bernstein himself, and I think there are people at CNN. They're saying we can't pull a story and say that Carl Bernstein, the great Carl Bernstein, got something wrong. If that happens, then it would be a legitimate reason to look at everything else Bernstein has asserted, beginning back with the Watergate days. Now, whether it would go that far, I don't know. But I do believe that in the executive suites and in the editorial departments at CNN, there is a grand desire to protect Carl Bernstein. And, of course, Carl Bernstein would have a vested interest in protecting Carl Bernstein. But once again, CNN's right in the thick of it, running fake news. This turned out to be fake news, and it dates back to July. The first one of these assertions dates back to July. The New York Times ran the story. The Washington Post ran the story. The Washington Post now has two stories ripping into Lanny Davis about 80%, because Lanny's still a good, loyal Democrat. He's still a good, loyal Clintonista. And so the Washington Post and New York Times are scratching their heads trying to figure out why Lanny did this. What possible reason could he have had? They're not getting anywhere near assigning the real motives. But the story actually has its origins last Friday. And it ran on Breitbart. The headline, CNN's Jim Sciutto busted for 2 fake news scoops in 1 week. CNN's Jim Sciutto, that's not to be confused with this Acosta guy, although these guys are a pretty good tag team for fake news. Jim Sciutto, spelled S-C-I-U-T-T-O. Jim Sciutto was a member of the Obama administration. I don't know what he did, but that's where he was. And the headline, CNN's Jim Sciutto has had 2 big scoops debunked as very fake news in just 1 week. Sciutto is CNN's chief national security correspondent. He joined CNN after serving with the Obama White House for a few years. His bias and dishonesty has already made him a laughing stock on more than one occasion. But this was an especially bad week for the anti-Trump activists. Last week, Jim Sciutto misled the public with a breathless piece of breaking news that falsely claimed President Trump did not consult with the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, prior to revoking the security clearance of John Brennan. Except Trump did. Trump did consult with Coats. This story, as of yesterday, still had not been corrected by CNN. A second Sciutto attempt to mislead the public that was debunked also remains uncorrected, even though it was debunked not only by the horse's mouthpiece, but on the airwaves of CNN. Led by Jim Sciutto on July 27th, it took a total of 3 CNN activists to manufacture a fairy tale that claimed that Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, knew that Trump was aware in advance of the 2016 Trump Tower meeting. In other words, they asserted that Trump not only lied about not knowing of the meeting with the Democrat-connected Russians, but that Trump's advanced knowledge could mean that he approved of it. Therefore, collusion. Therefore, impeachment. Therefore, Obama might get to come back, or Hillary might get another stab at it. In other words, they just made it up, but the problem is none of it is true. None of it is true according to Lanny Davis. He has recanted it all. Now, this business about 3 CNN activists to manufacture the story, that's where you get the name of Carl Bernstein. He is one of the 3 reporters who reported both of these stories. Lanny Davis has now admitted that he was a source for CNN's Trump Tower story. There's another element to this, too, and that Lanny Davis said that Michael Cohen can't wait to talk to the special prosecutor, Robert Mueller, to tell him all of this. That's not true either. Some of this stuff that Cohen has reportedly said, as reported by CNN, has been fake from the get-go, and it's been fake for a couple of weeks. And even now, while Lanny Davis recants it all and says he got it wrong, and Cohen ditto, CNN does not retract their version of the story. Lanny Davis is now admitting that he was the source for both CNN and the Washington Post and many other media outlets, which claimed that Michael Cohen knew Trump had advanced knowledge about the Trump Tower meeting. Now, the reason that's a big deal is because they're doing everything they can. They're turning over every rock. They're now even making things up to try to create the impression that Trump actually colluded with Russians. So if Cohen is out there saying that Trump knew about that meeting and that he let it happen, and he knew that his son was going to be meeting with Russians who were then going to pass along dirt on Hillary, well, then they think that they can make a case in the public, not necessarily in court, because none of this is a crime, but they can make a case in the public that this is the long-sought Trump collusion. And this story has been out there. You probably have seen it one way or the other a number of times. It's all bogus again. It didn't happen. Trump didn't know. That's what Trump said. The story also contains the obvious ingredient that Trump is a liar. Even after Lanny Davis has admitted all of this, CNN is still standing by the story. They claim to have sources beyond Lanny Davis and Michael Cohen, and I don't believe that. I think this is purely, strictly CNN in utter defiance. They're not good. They had to fire 3 guys for getting a story wrong on Scaramucci. Remember that? They said Scaramucci had some relationship with a Russian business or businessman or something, and it was so obviously wrong that they had to retract it, and they fired the 3 people that were responsible for producing the story. And I just don't think that in the midst of all of this, the way things are shaking out, that they don't want to have to admit that they knowingly lied, published fake news. They don't want to have to recuse anybody, fire anybody, suspend anybody. They don't want to do anything that would discredit themselves beyond what they do each and every day. And so they're desperately hanging on, and they're saying they've got additional sources. They won't, of course, identify them, so everybody's stuck here trying to figure out, why are they holding out when the man who was the source has recanted everything? In addition to this, and there's a little bit more detail in this that I want to provide, 96% of Google search results for Trump news are from liberal media outlets. This probably doesn't come as a surprise, but it's now been documented in a couple of different research projects. Social media companies are the new battleground for media bias. It is because of the reach they have. Facebook, 1.5 billion people. Twitter is not far behind. You throw Google with their search engine and YouTube in there. And there is active suppression of conservatism and conservatives on all of these platforms. There is not an engagement of ideas. There is an elimination of ideas. This is exactly what has been happening. People from the McCain wing of the party, we need to cross the aisle. We need to debate. We need to show that we can work together and compromise. We need to prove that we can make Washington and government work. I always said they're not interested in compromising with us. They don't want any debate. They don't want a level playing field. They don't want us on the playing field. Well, that is exactly what's happening on social media. There isn't this vibrant, so-called beautiful, wonderful smorgasbord of ideas where people get to exchange and debate and expand their minds. There is an ongoing effort to eliminate anything that is not from the liberal order, which would mean eliminating conservatives, conservatism, conservative sites, conservative results in search engines. I know it's not news to you that this has been going on, but official research now has documented 96% of Google search results, just put Trump in the search field, 96% of the results will be from liberal media outlets. You will not find on the first 1, 2 to 3 pages any conservative site. Now, you, sophisticated enough and aware enough to recognize that, will see it. But how about the average, ordinary people that just are not policy wonks, and they think whatever they see on the internet is true, and whatever Google produces is accurate? It is a massive effort being undertaken that has as its purpose the elimination of conservatism by simply pretending it doesn't exist. Project Veritas, their secret videos at Twitter proving that they engage in shadow banning. And now if you mention that, if you bring that up, people start poo-pooing you and laughing. What do you mean, shadow banning? You're crazy. You don't know what you do. Shadow banning is very simple. You're a conservative. You post something on Twitter, and nobody sees it. Twitter blocks it. Twitter, it does not go to the list of people you sent it to. It doesn't go to your followers. They just block it. Except you don't know. You don't know it hasn't gone anywhere, and the people you sent it to never see it. It never arrives. It never shows up in their feed. Voila, they have shadow banned you. And this is a rising practice that's taking place. It's happening at Facebook. Shadow banning is specific to Twitter. This has caused a response. President Trump, a couple of tweets, Google search results for Trump news shows only the viewing, reporting of fake news media. In other words, they have it rigged for me and others so that almost all stories and news about me is bad. Fake CNN is prominent. Republican, conservative, and fair media is shut out. Is this illegal? 96% of results on Trump news are from national left-wing media, very dangerous. Google and others are suppressing the voices of conservatives and hiding information and news that is good. They're controlling what we can and cannot see. It's a very serious situation, will be addressed. What's he going to do about it? No, I'm sure. How's he going to fix this? I mean, these people, you can't go at them on the First Amendment. They're not government. They can do what they want. They can run their businesses however they want. If they want to engage in a mass sanctioning of conservatives and conservatism, I mean, in the general sense, they can do it. What would force their hand is public pressure, financial pressure, or what have you. But they're not going to get any pressure from other leftists. Other leftists are applauding this. This is exactly what liberalism is. It's not something that relishes the idea of debate. They want to eliminate any and all opposition. They want to have to deal with it, period. There is no just opposition. There is nothing other than what they believe. And it's a nuisance to have to put up with it and admit it. So we'll see. The president's promising some kind of action on this. In fact, from the Washington Examiner, Trump threatens action against Google for rigged search results. So I guess the president is using Twitter now as a bully pulpit to bring attention to an extremely important, and it is dangerous. Social media companies are censoring mainstream political thinkers and writers and elected officials, conservatives. And it's evidence again that the left cannot prevail, even in their own minds, without cheating. They cannot thrive, survive, or win without cheating. And they now have built up these social media platforms that are so huge that their opportunity to cheat is massive each and every day. Got to take a quick time out. Be back with more after this. Don't go anywhere,
folks. Start it, but he'll be happy to finish it. Rush on the EIB network.
So I checked the email during the break. Rush, why would Lanny Davis lie like this when he knows it's going to be exposed? Why would he lie when he knows it's going to be... It's been exposed and CNN's not retracting it. CNN is not changing a thing about these stories. Why would Lanny Davis do it? Well, what did he do? He set up a GoFundMe page for Michael Cohen. Lanny Davis set up this fundraising effort so that Michael Cohen can continue to tell the truth. I think it's very possible that Lanny Davis lied about this and stuck with it as a fundraising effort, because any money Cohen gets is going to end up passing through to Lanny Davis, who is his lawyer. I mean, this is it's become so common now, fake news, out and out lies and made up stories that are designed to destroy and ruin people. It's happening so frequently that talking about it and reporting on it has ceased to contain any incredulity. It's just become standard norm in drive-by media. But this really needs to be understood by as many as possible.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
By the way, folks, a little programming note. I remain a little gravelly today, a little hoarse, and it limits my expression ability, if I can coin that word. I have to speak in more of a monotone than I usually do in order to have the voice break like that. So I'm trying to be expressive in alternative ways until such time later in the program when usage of the voice will strangely result in its strengthening. Now, on the CNN business, you know, even back to the Google and the social media and the, I can't even call it by the way beyond bias treatment of conservatives and anything that isn't liberal. I think that we've reached a stage in the country that a lot of people have not yet realized or don't even want to admit. We are not two different political ideologies or parties that have different ideas about accomplishing the same things. That's what it used to be. There used to be the left and the right, Democrats, Republicans. It used to be a common objective or common goal. The common objective was how to make life consistently better and improved for the most people. How to maintain freedom, how to ensure human rights, and all of this. There were those common objectives. There were just different philosophies, ideologies, ideas on how best to achieve them. And on the left, it was thought that government in control of most things would have the most equitable and fair result. That the more involved government was in every walk of life, in every avenue of life in America, then the fairer and the more just things would be. And it was acknowledged that the bigger government got, then the less individual liberty and freedom people would have. But that was on the left thought to be okay, because most people are not bright enough to know what to do to hold on to their freedom anyway, and have to kind of be cared for and looked out after and protected and so forth. On the conservative side, it was the belief that we are all endowed with individual abilities, capabilities, that none of us are the same, that we're all unique, and we have the blessed opportunity of living in the greatest place on earth where there is abundant human freedom, and with it the ability to reach whatever potential any individual sought, depending on that individual's ambition, circumstances, intelligence, ability, or what have you. Government was there. It was necessary. It was there to defend the country, to guard against the erosion of freedom and liberty and so forth, but it was not there. Government was in no way to determine the outcomes of lives in any way, in the job market, in schools, universities, or what have you. But even in those days, I mean, it was acrimonious, and you could even say it was tribal, but the objectives did have some things in common. I think that's I don't think we have it in common today. I don't think that what we on the right seek for America is at all what people on the left seek. So the battle that we're having today is not served at all by crossing the aisle and cooperating and finding common ground, because there isn't any. Because the objective of the people who now define and empower the left is the actual tearing down, transformation, or destruction of the very country that we cherish, the very country that was founded. And that is now the battle. And so when these giant social media outfits and search engines have the ability to literally censor what may be the majority thinking in this country, I will tell you this: liberalism is not the majority thinking in this country. If you look at polling data or research data, you look at people who honestly identify as liberal or conservative, you will find more people say they're Democrats and Republicans, but that's narrowing. But liberalism never shows up as the dominant ideology in America. But this is an example of how oppressive it is. It doesn't matter to them that they may be in a minority. That doesn't matter. If you're not liberal, you don't have any rights. You don't deserve. You don't have any standing. So there isn't any common ground anymore. There's no friendly debate or argument about how to get to a common objective, because the objective isn't something we have in common anymore. Now, to me, speaking personally, I look at the left, and I think if they actually understand conservatism, I don't know how you hate it. They construct all of these extreme wacko examples of what conservatives believe. Many of them are social and cultural. None of them are true, such as the things they say that we equate with Hitler and all this. It's just that they've gone off the rails on this stuff. They're intimidated, they're threatened, and they're even scared by conservatism. But nevertheless, they have amassed power in pop culture, movies and television shows, music, and now social media to not just win arguments. They have won, they have achieved the power to simply eliminate. So now we come back to CNN. Why will CNN not retract an obvious story that's wrong? Because they don't care that it's wrong. That's not CNN's objective. CNN's objective right now isn't whether the story's right or wrong. It's to persuade people that whatever they say is right. Because the real objective here is to get rid of Donald Trump, however it can be done. That's the objective, and since they consider themselves to be morally superior, then that means they are entitled in their own minds to do anything to get rid of this pest. If you got a bunch of rats in your house, are you going to worry about morality when you get rid of them, or are you going to wipe them out, whatever it takes? That's how they look at this. Donald Trump is a giant infestation of insects, vermin, and rats that they are going to do whatever they have to get rid of. So why will not CNN pull this story on Lanny Davis? Well, there's all kinds of reasons, but I really believe it's because they want it to be thought of as true. They want to be, every journalist in this country gets up to this day hoping and praying that he or she stumbles across the evidence that proves that Trump colluded with Russia. CNN thinks they've got it. They don't want to give it up. They also don't want to ruin the reputation of Carl Bernstein. But this story dates back to July 26th. The story specifically is that Michael Cohen intended to tell the special counsel, Robert Mueller, that he was present, that he, Cohen, was present when Trump was told in advance about Trump Jr.'s meeting with various Russians at Trump Tower. CNN's story includes a statement about its sourcing that credible reporting now suggests were designed to have misled the audience. They did this knowing that it wasn't true. And yet CNN refuses to address any of the questions that have been raised about its conduct here. They simply are refusing to deal with it. Now, the substance of the CNN story regarding Cohen, and it made headlines all over the world, and CNN was calling it a bombshell and breaking news bombshell. It has been retracted by other news outlets that originally confirmed. You know the way it happens. CNN reports X, whatever it is. Other news agencies say, what? Why didn't we know about this? So they start independently confirming it. And they did. They independently confirmed it. They all called Lanny Davis. And Lanny Davis told them the same lies that he told CNN. So the Washington Post, New York Post independently, quote unquote, confirmed CNN's story. Then Lanny Davis announces he admits that he made it up. He admits that he got it wrong. He apologizes for doing so, and he retracts it. Washington Post, New York Times, they all, in a matter of speaking, retract their own stories, but CNN isn't, which is leading to such stories. Here's Aaron Blake in the Washington Post. Michael Cohen's lawyer has done real damage to the case against Trump. Not Michael Cohen's lawyer has done real damage to journalism. Michael Cohen's lawyer has done real damage to the case against Trump. There isn't a case against Trump. That's what all of this means. Lanny Davis made it up, and Cohen made it up. Cohen was not there. He was not in Prague, as the dossier says. Cohen did not have any knowledge that Trump knew whether or not there was going to be a meeting in Trump Tower. All of this has been made up. And now the media is worried about what that means for the case against Trump, not what it means for journalism, because they long ago stopped worrying about that. But CNN has now been accused of lying to its audience about a key element of what they called a blockbuster, and they refused to retract it, where everybody else that run the story has sort of tried to pull back from it. Brief timeout yet again. Back with more in a moment.
Rush Limbaugh pointing the way on the EIB network.
Okay, we're going to get to the phones here in just a jiffy, but grab audio soundbite number 22. Howard Kurtz was on Fox this morning talking with Eric Shawn, a fill-in co-host, who said the network, CNN, says that, quote, "We stand by our story. We are confident in our reporting of it." Now, is this just a sense of confusion, or is there something much more serious and deeper going on here, Howie?
It's a pretty serious matter, Eric. CNN is hanging out there with a story about a major accusation that Michael Cohen supposedly, allegedly, ostensibly is prepared to make against President Trump about advanced knowledge of that Trump Tower meeting, when its own source, or one of them, as you say, Lanny Davis, Michael Cohen's lawyer, says it's not true. Now, I just got off the phone with Lanny Davis, who I've dealt with for 25 years. He's always been a straight shooter with me, and he's owning up to an error here. He says he made a mistake, which he regrets, in unintentionally misleading CNN. Here's this quote: "I should not be talking to reporters on background about something I'm not certain about. The combination of big stakes and a big mistake is a bad moment for me. If I had a redo in life," says Lanny Davis, "I wouldn't have said anything about the subject."
Oh, this was not on purpose. Now, this cover the the CYA move here. This is, I should not be talking to reporters on background about something I'm not certain about. What do you mean you're not certain about it? You're not certain about it, and yet you confirmed it for you. Everybody wanted this story to run. That's what you have to answer. Everybody involved, Cohen, Lanny Davis, CNN, the rest of the media, wanted this story to run. It could be as simple as they just know that Trump colluded. Oh, my God, they know it. They're so frustrated that they can't find any evidence. And Lanny Davis, why, who can dispute Lanny? He's a Clinton. He's the lawyer. Who can dispute? Lanny says that Cohen told him that. They ran with it, so excited. But if there's reasons beyond this. If you're Lanny Davis and you're going to set up a GoFundMe page for Cohen, and you're going to go out there and you're going to say, please send this man money so he can continue to tell the truth. What does telling the truth cost anybody? Zip. Zero. Nada. It's a fundraising trick. What Lanny Davis was doing was telling these insane lunatics on the left that Michael Cohen has the goods on Trump, colluding with Russia, and we need to make sure he has the continued ability to get that message out. He needs a GoFundMe page, and we need your support. That's what that was. That's how it was set up. The fact that CNN still hanging on to this should be proof of enough. That the truth here is not what everybody is after. It's what they can convince people is the truth. Let me get started on the phones in Bloomington, Illinois. Andrew, I'm glad you called, sir. What's shaking? How are you?
Well, I got an issue with the whole conservatives being blocked out. I'm going to raise something here to you that I really hate suggesting, but the only way I see conservative news being able to have equal airing is allowing net neutrality and going to the utility internet. I hate saying it, but I equate it kind of like driving a car. I mean, we're all concerned about, regulating it. Oh, you got to have a license to drive a car, right? Unfortunately, the liberals own the roads. So the only way we're going to be able to take our car out on the road is if we allow it to be regulated. I mean, I hate saying it, but, as long as the liberals own the internet, we've got to allow it to be regulated.
So you want to turn these social media outfits into utilities, essentially, which would then allow them to be regulated. But you can go after them on the basis of antitrust, which is the way the gigantic oil companies of old were busted up, and some of the other monopolies that were supposedly monopolies were busted up by going after them on antitrust, preventing and eliminate competition and that kind of thing. I think you can do that without opening up every door that is net neutrality. Net neutrality is just a code word for letting the federal government regulate all of the internet. Yeah, I'm of so many different minds on this, and the reason is, and I don't even know if I should make this observation. No, I'm not going to make the observation. It would not be understood and so forth. Something has to give on this, and Trump apparently now is going to lead and spearhead some effort to fix and correct this. It's obvious that the social engine, the social media purveyors, the Zuckerbergs and the Google guys, and Jack Dorsey at Twitter are only going to provide lip service to this. And in fact, they're going to deny what we know is happening. They're just going to say it isn't true. I mean, we've taken all kinds of steps and made all kinds of changes to our algorithms to make sure that this doesn't, while it, in fact, does continue to happen. Anyway, I'm up against it on time, but we will continue to talk about this. A lot of people lined up on the phones who want to weigh in. We'll do that when we get back.
Rush Limbaugh, because we know for you, only the best will do. On the EIB Network. You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Greetings, my friends, and welcome. It's great to have you here. A jam-packed 3 hours straight ahead from the Rush Limbaugh program as I sit firmly ensconced in the distinguished and prestigious Attila the Hun chair here at the Limbaugh Institute. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. So yesterday, when I spent a lot of time on CNN, and the fact that they will not retract the story that their only source is now admitting he lied about. CNN will not retract it. Remember what I said, ladies and gentlemen, as the reason why this was happening. I said they are protecting the reputation and the legacy of Carl Bernstein. Woodward and Bernstein. You know, Woodward and Bernstein did their Watergate stuff back in the 70s. And Woodward and Bernstein, well, Bernstein primarily has been all over the place, doing his brand of journalism ever since, and has not really stepped in it, but now 74 years old, and this is a doozy. This is an embarrassment, and CNN, I have no doubt, now everybody is speculating that this is the reason CNN is hanging tough and refusing to retract, is because that they feel the need, and probably Bernstein's working on them too, to protect his legacy. He's one of the three bylines on the story. The other one's Jim Sciutto, and I forget who else. What we're going to do in mere moments, we're going to go back and we're going to relive the day CNN announced this story. That was back on July 27th. And it was Allison Camerata in the InfoBabe anchorette chair. And they thought they had the scoop of the season. They thought they finally had it, that Trump had lied and that he had colluded with Russia because they had a source telling them it was Cohen and Lanny Davis that Cohen had seen it, that Cohen had seen Trump. Cohen knew that Trump had done it. And this lie lasted for a month. It was finally exposed when Lanny Davis realized that Cohen testified before Congress saying something entirely different. When Cohen testified before Congress, he said he knew nothing about Trump having prior knowledge of the Trump Tower meeting. And that's under oath. So Lanny's sitting there saying, wait a minute, my client has told me that he saw Trump. And then Lanny, after Cohen told him that, sourced CNN. Lanny went to see, and why would CNN, have you ever thought of this, why would CNN use Lanny Davis as an anonymous source? I mean, everybody knows Lanny Davis, and at the time he's Cohen's lawyer, and he comes right off of the Clinton War Room reservation from the 70s. So why would Lanny Davis be an anonymous source? Why would CNN not name him? Does Lanny Davis not have credibility, or did CNN not want to identify that one of their sources was a warrior defending his client? Anyway, they didn't identify the source. Lanny Davis then finally, after a month of fundraising, after a month of a GoFundMe campaign, or a significant amount of time, where Cohen had generated enough money to pay Lanny enough money for his tireless work, Lanny then starts calling everybody and saying, you know, I made a mistake. My client didn't know. My client doesn't know. My client cannot say for sure. He wasn't there. My client totally made it up. And thus, I made him. Well, CNN will not retract any of this. And I speculated yesterday, just to be repetitive here, to make the point home, because I think there's any doubt about it, that at the top of the list of reasons why, but it's not the only reason, but one of the primary reasons CNN's hanging tough is what's going to happen to them? Nothing's going to happen to them. How can they lose any more respect than they've already lost? How can their audience get any smaller significantly? What really is anybody going to do to them? Nobody's going to do anything to them. If anything, other media might get mad at them for misleading the rest of the media, because, the Washington Post had to withdraw. They had to change their story. New York Times, but CNN's still hanging. What's going to happen to them? Nothing happens to any of these people on the side of this that are trying to nail Trump with bogus, trumped up, never happened evidence. If you're CNN, say, what's going to happen? They're not going to lose any respect. Nobody's going to give them any grief over it. May as well hang in. Continue to try to mislead as many viewers as possible and protect the image and the legacy of Carl Bernstein. So we'll circle back to this in a minute. Next thing, what blue wave, ladies and gentlemen? In Florida, in the governor's primaries yesterday, we had an interesting battle shaping up. Ron DeSantis, who, full disclosure, I know, and I have played a couple of rounds of golf with. I call him governor on the golf course. He says, he doesn't say, don't say that, don't you? I just, he'll make a good shot. Way to go, governor. It's a nice guy. I like him a lot. I've met his wife. But as you know, I don't endorse during primaries, and I didn't. But Trump did. Trump did an appearance for DeSantis, and Trump heartily endorsed DeSantis. DeSantis was double digits down when Trump starts working for him, and DeSantis wins by double digits. Now, who in the Republican Party can do that? Now, we're told that, Trump's, he's not what he was. People have lost their luster for Trump. All this rigmarole from the left. That people are fed up with Trump. That people wish they could get their vote back. That Trump embarrasses them. You know the drill. Except when you look at polling data, 90% of Republicans maintain that they are in total sync with Trump and completely approve of the job he's doing. 90%. What other Republican could take a fellow Republican double digits down and convert that into a double-digit victory? Could Mitch McConnell do it? Could Paul Ryan do it? Who could do this? But the interesting thing, in addition to that, is the turnout. 1,602,000 votes on the Republican side. 148,000, or 1,480,000 on the Democrats. I'm trying to do the math in my head here. That's a significant turnout advantage for the Republicans in a state the Democrats claim that they're going to win, because the people of Florida are also fed up with Trump. This blue wave was supposed to be massively overwhelming the Republicans in turnout, and it didn't happen. Republican turnout, as I say, 1.6 million. We'll round the Democrats up to 1.5. So basically, 116,000 votes more on the Republican side than the Democrat side. And in Arizona, another Republican blowout. It's 124,000 in Florida. The Republicans outturned the Democrats by 100,000 in the Arizona governor's race. But yet, we've been hearing about blue wave, blue wave, blue wave ever since last December when the first generic ballot polling data was released. We've continued to hear about blue wave. And of course we would, because the media is not at all objective and simply is now carrying the agenda of the Democrat Party. I think actually leading it, but that's neither here nor there. So in 2 states where the Democrats planned on making big bank, where the Democrats plan on turning things around, there was greater Republican turnout than there was Democrat turnout. Now, this is not enough to suggest that there's going to be a red wave. I fall back to my standard operating procedure on this, and that is nobody knows what's going to happen. But I can tell you one thing that the media is saying that isn't true. The media is relying on age-old formulas which say that the first off-year election after a new president is elected, the president's party traditionally loses 15 seats. And they say the reason for this is that voters in the president's party lose enthusiasm. They secured the victory for the president in the presidential race, and so the next midterms, 2 years after the presidential election, they're not nearly as fired up. They become complacent, and they don't realize the dangers that lie ahead. I'm sorry, you got to throw that formula out with Trump. You have to throw out much of the conventional wisdom and formulaic thinking that has existed inside the Washington establishment for years. The Trump voter is not complacent. Trump voters are not sitting at home, fat, dumb, and happy, thinking that the contests are over, that their work is done. They are far more sophisticated than that. Not only that, the drive-by media each and every day keeps the Republican base fired up, motivated, inspired, and even angry, far more than they know. You know, the subject of media bias is often discussed. And you've heard the leftists and the media say, well, we're not biased. You know, it's in a psychological sense, people who are biased may actually not know it. And I find that people on the left, particularly the higher up you go in the food chain of the left, the more ignorant they are about people not like them. They don't socialize with, they make no effort to understand, they never come in contact with people who are not like them. So what do they think of people not like them? That's where the bias is. They think that they're whatever they think they are. And then they attach their formulas to it. And so the media and the Democrat Party firmly believes that Trump's voters are a bunch of idiots because conservative voters are idiots. Trump voters are even bigger idiots because who could not be an idiot to vote for Trump? They've never taken the time to learn who Trump voters are. They've never spent any time with them. They're not curious. They don't care. And that's the bias. They attach all these old formulas, and they continue to apply conventional inside-the-beltway wisdom to an outsider candidate and campaign, the likes of which they still don't understand and still resent. So I'm here to tell you that the primary foundational belief of their formula that the blue wave is going to happen, the fact that they're more motivated and more inspired, Democrat voters, and that Republican voters, Trump voters, don't realize the importance of the election, or they're not inspired because they already won 2 years ago. Not true. I think the drive-by media itself keeps Republican/conservative/Trump voters fired up 24/7. I think, in fact, that many Republican/Trump/conservative voters can't wait to vote just to stick it to the media. Even if some of them may have lost a little of their fervor for Trump, they still resent the hell out of the way the media is participating in this silent coup to destroy the guy they elected and to overturn an election that they won. I don't think motivated Republicans are going to be a problem. I don't think lack of motivation or lack of inspiration And at the same time, I'm not sure I buy into this notion that the left is so chomping at the bit. It's a bunch of secretariats out there in the starting gate. They just can't wait. The turnout in special elections, the Democrats were not appreciably higher. In some of these primary elections that we've had, we don't see any evidence of blowouts on the basis of turnout. And we certainly didn't see it yesterday. But see, the difference is they are closed-minded about it. And you can't talk them out of their belief that the midterms are essentially already over and that the Democrats are going to take the House, and they can't wait to start these investigations to paralyze Trump and maybe finally get rid of him. You can't convince them that they're stereotypical, statistically formulaic, old-fashioned views. You can't convince them that they may not be able to rely on them. So they continue to report the news. They continue to do what they do with the belief that, like them, everybody now has become totally disgusted with Trump. And they're missing. And it's right in front of their face. Even after these elections yesterday, say in Florida and Arizona, even with the turnout differential, they're still going to be in denial about it. I've seen it on CNN. They come up with all kinds of cockamamie excuses to explain it. And the number one excuse is, well, come on, this is a special election turnout. Yeah, it's going to be much different in November. You wait. We can't judge it. You know, every election that's coming up, they predict that they're going to win it going away. Turnout, votes, you name it, it's going to be a slam dunk. When they lose it, or when the turnout's not what they think it is, they fall back to, well, it doesn't matter. This is not the kind of turnout where we're expecting this blue wave. That'll happen in November. You can't judge anything by these primaries or special elections. You can't. See, every time they lose an election, that election doesn't count. That turnout model doesn't matter. It can't be right. They continue to live in denial about why they're losing. So we shall see. I still believe that we haven't yet had the events that are going to shape the outcome in the election in the midterms of November. I believe it's still dicey to start polling people here in late August and to try to attach any solid meaning to that. Although, I will say, well, I think that the media's behavior, the behavior of the Democrat Party, the whole Washington establishment, I think one thing you can count on is that Republican/Trump voters are fed up now, and they're going to stay fed up through November. It doesn't matter. Because the media is going to keep lighting the fire under them every day, multiple times a day. Let me take a quick timeout only because I have to back.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
America's gift to broadcasting
on the EIB network.
Hey, you think McCain could have taken a gubernatorial candidate down double digits in pre-election polling and turned him into a double-digit winner? I'm just asking. And here's another question. Has anybody seen Barack Hussein or Hillary Clinton on TV denying the news story that the Chinese government had real-time hacked access to Hillary Clinton's computer, her homebrew server and network when she was Secretary of State? I haven't seen that. Has anybody seen Obama and Hillary indignant? Anybody seen them on television flat out refusing, denying, saying this is absurd? Anybody seen that? You haven't. Why not? You realize what a hellacious charge this is? Well, everybody's thinking the Russians have. By the way, I think that all these people at the FBI, the McCabe's, the Strzok Smirks, the Pages, the Bruce Orrs, Comey, I think they all knew at the Chi-Coms what it is. Folks, it's real-time access to her computer. Not to mention the spy that was on Dianne Feinstein's staff for 20 years. the Chi-Coms essentially had a screen sharing app, real time. They simply could watch Hillary Clinton do whatever she did on her computer. And if she got an email from Obama, they could read it as she opened it. Real-time screen sharing is essentially what the nature of the hack was. And they're not denying it. I would think that if this wasn't true, why, we would have had flat-out denials. Instead, they're hoping the media not reporting it means nobody will see it.
You're listening to Russia's Week in Review.
Everybody's all excited about the Florida governor's race. Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump versus Andrew Gillum. That's Bernie Sanders and George Soros. And that's how people are looking at this. And, yeah, I mean, that's going to become conventional wisdom. It's Trump versus Soros. It's Trump versus crazy Bernie. What it's going to be is the American founding versus Venezuela. The American founding versus socialism. That's what it's going to be. I understand the desire people have to personalize this, attach celebrities or personalities to the vote and so forth. But the substance of the governor election in Florida is real simple. It's conservative / the founding of America type government, type of country versus this new brand of Democrat socialism, which is being advocated by the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And we will see as time unfolds. Let's now go to the audio sound bites. This is the CNN Lanny Davis story, and let me just review for you essentially what happened here. Back on July 27, CNN breathlessly ran breaking news claiming they had an anonymous source. We now know that source was Lanny Davis. They had an anonymous source saying that it was now fact that Michael Cohen knew in advance, that Donald Trump knew in advance of the Trump Tower meeting involving Russians visiting and talking with his son. And CNN ran this story breathlessly as though they had finally discovered the Holy Grail. They had found the collusion that the media and journalists had been searching for over 2 years. They did not identify their source as Lanny Davis, which I still say remains very curious. Why would Lanny Davis be their anonymous source? I mean, they got a source. Everybody knows who Lanny Davis is. Lanny Davis is a dyed-in-the-wool, loyal Democrat advocate. He was and is the warrior for Cohen. And CNN lived off of this story for a month. And they kept hammering it and hammering it. One of the names, one of the bylines on the story for their website was Carl Bernstein of Woodward Bernstein. And nobody corrected the story, even though Lanny Davis knew this was not true. And he knew it wasn't true because Michael Cohen had lied. Michael Cohen testified to a congressional committee or two that he had no knowledge of Trump and the Trump Tower meeting. He didn't have any idea if Trump knew or didn't know. He had no idea if Trump went. He didn't know a thing. And that was his testimony. But he had told Lanny Davis something else, supposedly, which Lanny then told CNN, which CNN then ran their breaking news story and couldn't stop having orgasms live on cable television. Then Lanny figured out somehow, some weeks later, that Cohen had lied to him, which meant that Lanny had lied to CNN and the Washington Post, because when CNN ran the story, the Washington Post and CNN all independently confirmed it, they said. See, that's what journalism is all about. An outfit will run a story. The New York Times, Washington Post have not heard about it, so they get in gear and they try to confirm it with their own sources. And then they reported that they were able to confirm with their own source. Lanny Davis was the source for everybody. And then Lanny had to come clean at some point, which he did recently, by saying that he'd made a mistake. And there are actually two elements to this that Lanny had lied to CNN about. The Washington Post and New York Times have run their so-called corrections. The Washington Post has run a story really ripping Lanny Davis and Cohen for doing great damage to the case against Trump. Because now there isn't a case against Trump. Everything about the story was made up. CNN will not pull it. CNN will not correct it. CNN will not withdraw it. CNN will not change a thing. And that is because I'm convinced, as I said yesterday, they're dying to protect the reputation and legacy of Carl Bernstein and Jim Sciutto. There are three other people on this. So let's go back to July 27, 2018. CNN's New Day co-hosts Allison Camerata and John Berman are breathlessly introducing the breaking news.
CNN breaking news.
We do begin with breaking news. For those of you who have not paid much attention to the Russia investigation, today would be a good day to start doing so.
Indeed.
Sources tell CNN that President Trump's longtime former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, has begun spilling the beans. One of the bombshells he reportedly wants the public to know is that then candidate Donald Trump knew in advance and approved of that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting in which Russians promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. And these sources say Cohen is prepared to make that claim to special counsel Robert Mueller.
Now, if this is true, it means the president lied about it publicly. It means that Donald Trump Jr. lied about it under oath. And it means the current president of the United States had knowledge of and approved of accepting Russian help during the campaign.
You know, folks, they can barely keep their pants on. But you can just hear it in their voices. The only problem is that none of that was true. Let me unpack it just a little. I'm not going to go through it line by line. Sources tell CNN that Trump's longtime personal attorney, Michael Cohen's begun spilling the beans. One of the bombshells he reportedly wants the public to know is that Trump knew in advance and approved of the June 2018 Trump Tower meeting in which Russians promised dirt on Hillary. If Trump had known, there's no crime. There is no, this would be what people would call collusion, and it isn't a crime. Trump, look at this is all moot because none of this happened, but I'm just telling you in addition how weak the CNN case is here. The Russians also did not promise dirt on Hillary. Well, there were a couple of people that set the meeting up that said they had some dirt, but what this meeting was really about was a bunch of Russian adoption activists trying to get something called the Maginski Act changed. In other words, Trump Jr. was set up. The whole meeting was a setup. They had no Hillary dirt. There wasn't any Hillary dirt. And when Jared Kushner and Trump Jr. found out about it, the meeting ended. There wasn't any Hillary dirt. All there was an effort to lobby people who were not even in power to change the Maginski Act. I believe that this whole meeting was part of the setup run by the FBI and the deep state and all these other people. I think, just as they did not warn Trump when they supposedly found spies in his campaign, well, we know they planted the spies, Stephen Halper and a couple others. This, I think, was a setup. They wanted this to happen so that they could then leak that it had happened to the media. Now, Allison Camerata says here, Michael Cohen has begun spilling the beans. He wants the public to know. Well, then why isn't he the source? Why is there not what Michael Cohen wants? And then the second, Cohen couldn't wait to tell Mueller. Cohen, said the story, wants to talk to Mueller. Cohen can't wait to tell Mueller this. Well, that wasn't true either. In other words, folks, not a word of this, not a single word of this breaking news story is or was true. In the next bite, they bring in Jim Sciutto, whose name was also on the story as a byline. And he, too, has now spread elements of this story on his own outside of this report that we have the soundbite for. He did so multiple times later, and everything that CNN said about this has been debunked. But here is the next bite with Sciutto.
Let's go first to CNN's Jim Sciutto, part of the team that broke this exclusive story. Jim is live in Washington. Jim, laid out for us.
Good morning, John. Sources tell myself and Carl Bernstein that President Trump's longtime lawyer, Michael Cohen, is willing to tell the special counsel Robert Mueller that then candidate Trump knew in advance about his campaign's June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with Russians who were promising dirt on Hillary Clinton, and that the president approved of that meeting.
Do not doubt me. None of that's true. It did not happen. and the Washington Post and New York Times have now written stories saying so. They have retracted it. Well, I don't think there's been official retractions. They've run corrections. They've done their mea culpas. And now they're dumping all over Cohen. And remember, Lanny Davis let this live. Lanny Davis let this live for 3 weeks until he decided to tell media that he'd made a mistake and that Cohen had not said that, and Cohen had not seen this, and that Trump didn't know the meeting, that Lanny can't prove anything. I can't tell you the president knew of the meeting. I can't tell you that he approved the meeting because my source, I got it wrong. I made a mistake. Well, what happened was Cohen, when he testified before a congressional committee, did not say what CNN reports him saying when he's under oath. So he either lied to Lanny Davis or they both concocted some scheme story to end up raising money for Cohen. Remember, Lanny Davis goes out there and begs people to send money to Cohen's GoFundMe page so that Cohen can continue to tell the truth. As I keep asking, what does it cost anybody to tell the truth? I guarantee if Michael Cohen wants to go on TV today, there'll be 15,000 cameras waiting for it. It won't cost him a dime. Lanny Davis needs to get paid. He's a lawyer. He's working for which is another. What is the Clinton lawyer doing defending this guy? I mean, none of this passes the muster test. One more bite. Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald co-founded a website called The Intercept. He lives in Rio because he's become persona non grata in the American left, but he is an official card-carrying leftist progressive. He championed Edward Snowden. Snowden granted him all kinds of access after Snowden got caught or discovered to be leaking all kinds of NSA secrets. Greenwald used to have a regular guest appearance window on MSNBC, but they have banned him now because he publicly writes and states that he doesn't think there's anything at all to this Russian story. He doesn't think that there's any Russian collusion with Trump. He thinks it's all been a big waste of time, and so he's persona non grata. Here is Greenwald last night with Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Tucker asked him, what do you make of this? What do you make of CNN not retracting it, not correcting it?
I've been on your show to talk about a lot of these humiliating moments, and this might be one of the worst ones yet. After Lanny Davis went on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and to Anderson Cooper's shock, admitted that everything CNN had been breathlessly hyping is true, was actually false. The Washington Post and the New York Post listened to that, and they said, wait a minute, we independently confirmed CNN stories based on an anonymous source, and our anonymous source was Lanny Davis, who's now saying the whole thing is false. So they did what they had to do and what they should have done, which is they retracted the story. They outed their own source. CNN couldn't do that because they lied to the entire world. They can't retract the story, and they can't admit they lied, so they're just continuing to stick to what everybody knows is a lie.
And there is no other source but Lanny Davis. When the Washington Post, New York Post wanted to confirm it, they went to Lanny Davis. That was CNN's source. Lanny has told them he made it up. CNN is not withdrawing, not retracting the story. It is a humongous embarrassment. They can't withdraw. And it's because, I'm telling you, folks, I'm getting... Bernstein.
Rush
Bernstein
Limbaugh
protected.
pointing the way on the EIB network.
Back to the phones we go. Shepherdsville, Kentucky. This is Bill. Thank you for calling. Sir, how are you?
Thank you. Oh, fine. Great. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I've been listening to you this morning talking about the, how the news media is going to keep people interested in by, putting out the propaganda they put out. I wanted to tell you, I'm just pissed completely. Over the years, I am an AFL CIO member, industrial electrician, 33 years, and all I've heard out of my Democratic buddies was how great the Democrats were for us. And then we got this 1% was the new get used to it growth rubbed into our face. In my line of work, I watched all these factories closing, and our work was dwindling. Unionism has dwindled down to nothing, and the Democrats have pissed me off. Regardless of what the crap the news media puts out, the Democratic Party has made me so mad I can't see straight. I'm through with them.
How long have you been before they ticked you off? How long were you a voting Democrat?